us today. My name is Ed Kranich with the Connecticut Green Bank. It looks like a few folks are still getting signed on here, so we'll give them another couple of minutes and then we'll get started at 11:03. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ed Kranich. I'm an Associate Director of Incentive Programs with the Connecticut Green Bank, working on the Energy Storage Solutions Program. I'm joined today by Rudy Stirk, Director of Marketing and Communications with the Connecticut Green Bank. So thanks again for joining us. We will be talking about energy storage solutions for commercial, industrial, multifamily building owners. So this presentation today will be recorded. We'll have a copy of it posted at energystoragect.com. And it's really geared more towards the building owner, tenant, and property developer. I know we have a lot of commercial contractors and system owners on the line as well, so that's great. From a sales perspective, I think that this will be useful for those who deal with customers regularly to kind of see what we talk about when we talk to our customers in the program. So our agenda today, we're going to start with a little bit about the Connecticut Green Bank. Rudy will introduce that, and then we'll go into the program background, program design, incentives, how to get started, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. If anyone has questions as we go, please feel free to use the chat function or the questions function on GoToWebinar here. If there's anything urgent, you can't hear, you can't see the slides, please let us know ASAP, but we will get to questions. We'll push most of them to the end. So with that, I will turn it over to Rudy for a little bit about the Connecticut Green Bank. Rudy.
Thank you, Ed. So for those of you who don't know the Connecticut Green Bank, we were established in 2011. We are a quasi-public state agency. We were the nation's first state-level green bank. Our role is to use limited public dollars to attract multiples of private capital investment. That at a ratio of about nearly $7 for every $1 of public money that we receive. And all of that goes back into solutions that help people and businesses in Connecticut reduce their energy costs or create more resilient, healthy, and more equitable communities. So using those limited public resources, we have a few goals. Obviously, that leverage is very important. So bringing in those multiples of private investment into the green economy. We're also always pursuing investment strategies that help transform the market. So our role as co-administrator in the Energy Storage Solutions Program helps to highlight that, market transformation and really strengthening Connecticut's communities. It's a big part of everything that we do. One of our goals is to ensure that 40% of our investment goes into the most vulnerable communities in Connecticut to help them be more successful and thrive. So we do all those things through a number of solutions. Ed is going to go deeper into energy storage solutions, but Greenbank also offers programs for homes, specifically our Smarty loan program for commercial properties through programs such as CPACE and our power purchase agreements and solar roof lease. We also offer investment opportunities like Green Liberty notes and bonds, as well as programs for communities. We've got a number of more innovative things that are starting to happen now with electric school buses and other programs that will directly benefit communities in Connecticut. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Ed.
All right, thanks, Rudy. So we'll get started with the program background here on the history of energy storage solutions for Connecticut. So before we get into the specifics of the program, we just want to talk about why we chose energy storage for Connecticut, or more importantly, why it became a legislative target. So this program was created out of need really for two things. One is to smooth out the peak demand on the grid, and the other is to provide backup power when individual homes and businesses need it. So by smoothing out peak demand on the grid, you can bring down energy costs for all ratepayers, not just the folks who actually have the batteries. And for backup power, of course, it only benefits the account or the building where the battery is installed. But it's a way to it's another way to address and confront climate change in seeing these larger storms, both in severity and frequency increasing in Connecticut, and just giving customers the resilience to, be safer in the face of major storms in the future. And also, as we move to electrify the grid more and more, folks become more reliant on electricity rather than fuel-based technologies. So it becomes more important. So a little bit of history about the program. So it was created as part of Public Act 2153 back in 2021, where it established a statewide goal of 1,000 megawatts of battery storage by the end of 2030. This program specifically is a 9-year incentive program with a goal of 580 megawatts of behind-the-meter storage for both residential and non-residential, which is what we're talking about today, the non-residential. The remaining 420 megawatts are TBD at the moment. So if there's any developers on the line who are interested in things like front of the meter or vehicle to grid, those are in the future. Nothing has really been developed yet on that end for reaching front of the meter customers, at least not something similar to this program. So the state has a goal of 1,000 megawatts, but this program is aiming to serve 580 of those megawatts. Our program has a goal of 40% of the benefits reaching underserved customers, and that primarily will happen through residential, low income, and underserved communities. However, on the non-residential side, as we consider it, or the commercial side, that does include multifamily affordable housing. So for customers out there, for building owners out there, and property developers who work with affordable housing, multifamily housing, this program can apply to you, and this webinar specifically sort of talking about the commercial aspect of the program. The program was developed and overseen by PURA, the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, and it's administered by the Connecticut Green Bank, Eversource, and UI jointly as program administrators. The program has a pretty robust annual review process whereby we submit all of our program history, targets, everything for the last year to PURA for a review. And we do that to ensure that ratepayers are seeing benefits from this program. So we're just nearing the end of our 2025 annual review right now. We are expecting to have some changes for 2026, but we will communicate that to folks in the next month or so. So why energy storage for your building? So there are three reasons that a building owner or tenant might consider installing energy storage at their site. One is to reduce your monthly peak demand. The other is to obviously keep operations running during an outage. And then finally, you can contribute to reducing peak demand in Connecticut, which that can be an important aspect of a business's climate and environmental goals. So first we'll get into the monthly peak demand. So if you're a business owner and you look at your electric bills regularly, you probably notice your monthly demand charge. Your monthly demand charge is based on the highest 15-minute period during the month where your building is drawing power from the grid. So you can use a battery to charge during the off-peak times when rates are cheaper, and you can discharge during your peak operations to avoid that high demand charge for power consumption. So what that actually looks like in this crude image here, Rudy, I'll have to have you get an artist to clean this one up. But this is my my illustration here of what you can do with a battery. So if I throw on the pointer, hope you can see that. So this red line depicts what a building's peak load might be throughout the day. So there is a point, maybe when all the air conditioning is running in the middle of a hot afternoon, where your peak demand can get pretty high. And with a battery, you can sort of increase those shoulder times by charging, but overall lower your peak demand during the day by discharging the battery at that time. So this area above the green curve is considered savings, and this area above the red curve here, between the red and the green curve, is when the battery is charging. So the aim here is by decreasing your peak demand, you'll decrease your monthly demand charge on your electric bill, and that will contribute to the savings when you factor in the cost of the battery. So next, keep operations running during an outage. So this can mean different things for different types of businesses or different types of buildings. But retailers particularly have been pretty keen on joining the Energy Storage Solutions program so far. Kind of gives them an advantage during critical times when there might be an outage in the whole town. You can keep the lights on, keep your operations running, and also protect your inventory, especially if you have anything perishable in your building. And you can be open for customers to come to your business during times of need. You can keep the whole operation running, or you can set it to you can set it up to just keep critical lighting or critical machinery running to get your staff out of the building safely. And you can avoid power interruptions that can cause pretty costly manufacturing errors or data loss, depending on the nature of your business. So we've heard from some customers who are interested in storage, who maybe don't get a battery that could supply their entire building's load. They only get a battery that will allow them to safely shut down their machinery during a power outage or even just a brief power blip, because they can avoid a very costly error in their manufacturing process because their machine didn't shut down for a brief moment, which could potentially ruin a job that they're working on. So batteries can help you save money in that way as well. And finally, reduce peak demand in Connecticut. So you can reduce your carbon emissions with or without solar panels. So not all buildings have the opportunity to install solar panels depending on where they're located. So you can use a battery, takes up a lot less space, doesn't work exactly the same way as solar panels, but it can help contribute to your business's climate and environmental goals. And by doing that, you can earn incentives to help make Connecticut's grid cleaner and cheaper for everyone. So here's a little bit of history about the program so far. As of today, we have 87 commercial projects that are approved through about a dozen developers. We're at 169 megawatts of the total goal of a 400 430 megawatts. That is the total goal of the program. So we're getting about a quarter of the way there so far, or about a third of the way there. This has resulted or will result in about $290 million of total investment and about $50 million of approved upfront incentives. So far, out of all of these projects, only about 5 of them are installed for about 1 megawatt worth of capacity. So that remaining 168 megawatts of capacity is currently still tied up in permitting, interconnection, development. These projects do take quite a while to install for the large scale 1 to 2 megawatt size systems. As you can see, the average size is about 2 megawatts in the program. So that's kind of the common size that we're talking about here. This bottom right system, I put a little icon in there so you can get a sense of the scale. These systems are about the size of a shipping container. And that's really the most common battery that we've seen installed or planned to be installed in the program so far. So the types of customers that we see most commonly, warehouses, a lot of warehouses so far actually, agricultural, manufacturing, municipal, food production, retail, education, and some multifamily housing, and I believe 1 hospital so far. So people really want to have backup power for all sorts of reasons. Oftentimes for education or municipal, it's to serve as a shelter or place of refuge during an outage in the town. So that can have quite a bit of value for municipal customers as well. So onto the program design. So how do you earn incentives when you install a battery through energy storage solutions? So there's 2 types of dispatch in the program. Really what that means is the incentives that are earned for this program are based on the energy that your battery exports. So we want people to install batteries so that they can use it when the power goes out, but when the power is not out, during blue sky days, we want folks to be using their batteries, filling them up when electricity is cleaner and cheaper, and discharging them when grid electricity is more expensive and higher emitting. So we pay customers incentives to use their battery to discharge, to use in their building, and then any excess is sent off to the grid. So if you receive an upfront incentive, like most customers opt to do, then your battery will be programmed by the manufacturer to discharge its energy during June, July, and August on weekdays, except for the 2 holidays. And really, this is kind of the set it and forget it, which ensures that your battery is set to a schedule where it will charge and discharge in a way that will benefit not only the grid, but also you as the customer. It aligns with most businesses' peak demand usage. So it will help to avoid demand charges for you, and it will help to avoid expensive electricity for the rest of the grid. And then outside of the season, you can use the battery however you want. So you can continue to do this for your own business, or you can just have the battery be set to reserve mode, just ready for an outage. The next type of dispatch that we do is called active dispatch. So on top of that pre-programmed schedule for your battery, the utility can predict a peak, which usually occurs during the summer. Anytime June, July, August, or September. Usually it's in August or September these days. But essentially, if the utility predicts that there might be a peak demand day on the grid, they will call an event which will override that passive event that was scheduled for the day. They typically call these 24 hours in advance, and it says instead of dispatching from 5 to 8 p.m. per the usual passive schedule, the battery will discharge from 7 to 8 p.m. or 8 to 9 p.m. And it will go at a higher power. And if you participate in that event, then you'll earn an additional incentive on top of that upfront passive incentive. So here's another way of looking at it here. There's the two, turn on the pointer. There's the two incentives, upfront incentive for passive. There's no winter events. It's only in the summer. It's only for 3 hours at a time. And it discharges about 80% of your battery's capacity, depending on what's available when the event begins. And if there's a time, say in July, August, September, where the utility predicts that there might be a different time when that peak may occur, they will call an event that will be anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. Typically, they're about 2.5 hours on average. That event can occur anytime, and if your battery responds well to it and discharges most of its capacity during that time, then over the course of the season, your performance will be tallied up and you can earn an incentive based on your performance. So right now, the program is in tranche 3 on the commercial and industrial side. So things have moved pretty quickly in the program so far. We expected to be here probably a few years from now, but we've moved up pretty quickly in the program just based on the interest from commercial customers. So in the commercial and industrial sector, we have 3 customer classes that we base the incentives on, and that's small, medium, and large, which is all just based on the customer's annual peak demand. Small customers are anyone under 200 kilowatts in annual peak demand. Medium is 200 to 500 kilowatts, and large is anyone over 500 kilowatts of peak demand. And for multifamily affordable housing customers, they actually, even though they're kind of multifamily is grouped into the commercial sector, affordable multifamily housing is grouped into the low-income residential. So it earns a significantly higher incentive for those customers. So one of the questions that we get after we talk about dispatch is what happens during an outage. So you typically get a battery with the assumption that it'll protect you during an outage, but what if an outage happens after a dispatch and your battery has been discharged? So we have a few protections in place to make sure that the battery does not dispatch before there's an expected outage. One is that the utility will cancel any planned events for a storm that triggers their emergency readiness plan. So really, anytime that you get a text or an email from Eversource or UI that says, we're expecting a storm, here's what to do to prepare, that means that the emergency preparedness has been triggered and we won't call any events during that time. And if there's any event that had been planned, we will cancel it. On top of that, for the more localized storms, many battery systems and operators have software that can prevent the discharge during that time. So typically they will look for any National Weather Service alert for your area, and depending on the nature of that alert and depending on the software that you have, it can just automatically go into a, it's called like a outage protection mode. And in that outage protection mode, it will just make sure that the battery is totally topped off and that it won't discharge for any other reason other than an outage. On top of that, there's no dispatch at all in the months of April, May, or October. And typically between November and March, there's really only 2 to 3 events that are called. And those events are optional anyway. So, you know, really summertime is kind of the bulk of when we call these events. There's about 80 events in total, dispatch events throughout the summer, maybe 2 to 3 during the winter, which is November to March. They typically occur in February. So on to the incentives. So the incentive rates, like I said earlier, are based on the annual peak demand of the customer. So we have small here under 200, medium 2 to 500, and large over 500. And the rates are tiered based on the size of the battery relative to the customer's peak demand. So the tiered incentive is admittedly a little bit complicated, so it's simpler to just use our calculator. But essentially, if you're installing a system that's, you know, appropriate to your building's demand, you can use these pretty straightforward calculations to get a rough estimate of your incentive. On top of that, we do have a priority customer adder. So for any customers who are considered priority, which means they are a small business, or they are replacing a fossil fuel generator with a battery, or they're a critical facility, then we will add an additional 25%. There's also a 25% adder for grid edge customers, and that means that you are located on a circuit that has more frequent or longer duration power outages than average. So if you're in one of those priority sectors, you can earn an additional 25% on your upfront incentive. For the performance incentive levels, they are the same for all customers, which is based on summer and winter split, and they do decrease after the first 5 years. So I'll show you what that all means with a few examples here. So this is an example for a small non-residential, commercial, and industrial system. This system's 100 kilowatts, 320 kilowatt hours. Just based on the averages, we threw in the average cost here of what you could expect to pay for such a system, not including any solar panels or any ancillary equipment that may be necessary, but this is the battery installation cost, $384,000. The upfront incentive for such a customer would be about $73,000, $93,000 federal tax credit, 10 years of performance incentives. That all adds up to a net cost of backup power and a demand savings tool of about $94,000–$95,000. So over a 10-year term, when you factor in demand cost or demand savings rather, that can result in, you know, a much lower number or even a negative number, meaning you actually have a net benefit of backup power for your building. And here is actually I'll jump over, here it is. So here is a large commercial type system. This is a multifamily affordable housing example here. So this is a much larger system, and this would be for a affordable housing location that can receive the upfront incentive at the low income rates. So this is a significantly higher incentive because in this case, it actually triggers our 50% cap of the total cost. So it's a $1.5 million incentive. But just to show you here that, you know, the difference between installing for a typical commercial or a typical market rate residential multifamily building, adding that adder for affordable housing can be pretty significant in terms of the total incentives that you can access for a project like this. So if you're interested, or for building owners who are interested in doing this, what we recommend to get started is you can visit energystorageCT.com to learn more about the program. You can view a copy of this webinar, view a recording of this webinar. You can find a contractor using our energy storage eligible contractors tool. So you can find someone that offers the services that you're interested in, someone in your area. Design a system and incentive package with your contractor based on your needs. So you may want to just cover a portion of your demand, or you may want to cover just a portion for backup purposes, or you may want to cover your entire building. So when you work with a contractor to design a system, you'll consider how long it will take to go through interconnection. If you're over 2 megawatts or over 1 megawatt, really, you're looking at a few years for installation. Whereas if you install something that's 100 to 500 kilowatts, that can be as little as 1 to 2 years. Once you've designed your system, you can find financing, which the Green Bank does offer financing that applies for battery storage. It's not necessary, it's not required at all for the Energy Storage Solutions Program. So we allow folks to use any type of financing. There's no special adder or anything like that for using Green Bank financing. At that point, then your contractor would apply for the permits, interconnection, and incentives. The incentives are approved pretty quickly for commercial projects. It can be a few weeks to up to 2 months, depending on the schedule of our board meetings and how large the project is. So for the very large commercial projects that have an incentive over $500,000, which many of them do, those approvals can take a little bit longer because they have to go through a standard board meeting, which is on a monthly basis at the Green Bank, or actually 10 a year at Green Bank. So Green Bank will approve the project, contractor can go through the building and interconnection process, and then once the system is installed and operational, you can begin to earn those ongoing performance incentives. The upfront incentive that we talked about is presented as an upfront cost reduction to the customer. So if you have that $500,000 project and we approve a $100,000 incentive, then you would only be on the hook for financing the remainder of $400,000 in that case. So we pay the upfront incentive to the contractor after the project is completed, and we pay those performance incentives on a seasonal basis twice a year. Those come directly from the utility to the customer, and the customer can reassign them to another entity if they wish. So if you want to have the payment go right to your lender to help pay down your loan, you can do that as well. We have forums to allow customers to do that. So if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to us, energystorage@ctgreenbank.com. We have folks who would be happy to meet with you and talk about your specific project, your specific building. We can help kind of get you started and get the ball rolling, calculate an incentive for you, and connect you with contractors. So with that, I will pass it off actually to the audience. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the questions box here, and maybe we can have Rudy read them off as they come in. I haven't seen any come in yet, so we'll just give it a minute here. All right, so see one question here. Does the battery have to be interconnected so that I can export? That is a great question, and in most cases, yes, it does. So we do need to have all systems, in most cases by default, have to be interconnected for export, which I know can add some time to the process. If a system is significantly smaller than the customer's baseload, we could consider a non-export interconnection, but it's not the norm. So in the case of a battery that's much smaller than baseload, I would say reach out to us and we can discuss that. But in most cases, yes, has to be export.
I'm going to read some of these questions, Ed.
Yes, please.
So, okay. How does the dispatch get communicated from the utility in real time?
That's a good question. So we do that through what's called a DERMS, Distributed Energy Resource Management System. So every battery that's installed in the program has to have an operator that is integrated, software integrated with our DERMS. For commercial customers, that DERMS is uplate. So when an event is scheduled, the utilities will notify the DERMS, and the DERMS will say, and they'll tell the DERMS the parameters of the dispatch, and the DERMS will send that signal to all of the operators that it's integrated with. So whether that be, Tesla, C-Power, anyone else, Scale, Honeywell, it will go to those operators and they will transmit kind of that last mile signal to their batteries specifically. So it is kind of a chain of a telephone, but it's all done through software and it's all done sort of automated.
Great. So do the installations need to be behind the meter?
Yes. So in all cases, they do need to be behind the meter. What that means is that it has to be able to serve the customer's site for backup power. So it has to be able to island, and it has to be able to it has to be able to help offset their building's demand, and it has to be able to export as well. So we realize that in some cases, technically, it may be in front of a meter. If you're on a certain tariff for the NRES program. So in that case, you can reach out to us. We allow some exceptions, but yeah, 99% of the time it has to be behind the meter.
And is there a size limit?
The size limit is, so any customer can have 2 megawatts. So that's the minimum size limit. And then for anyone who wants a system over 2 megawatts, the battery just has to be, it can't be more than 1.5 times the annual peak demand of the customer. So so that means it's limited to the greater of 2 megawatts or 1.5 times peak demand.
Got it. Who is responsible for the cost of interconnection?
That is all on the customer or contractor, whoever is developing and paying for the project.
Is it possible that the utility active dispatch calls would not occur? And what happens to the active income in that scenario?
I guess if you say not, or that the calls would not occur, meaning just if they just don't ever call an event.
Yeah.
So the payment is based on the average power rating for the season. So if you have one event where you contribute an average of 100 kilowatts, then your payment for that season is 100 kilowatts times $200. If you have 2 events and you contribute an average of 100 kilowatts, it's the same. You have 30 events and it's 100 kilowatts, it's the same. So it's just based on your average power rating, which means that every event is an opportunity to improve your average or potentially bring down your average. If there are 0 events, then yeah, then it would be 0, but they always make at least 1 event per season. So particularly in the winter time, for the last couple of years, we're not really at a point in Connecticut where we have a winter peak. We're probably a few years away from that with heat pump installations and EVs, but they still will call at least 1 event per season.
Perfect. Thank you, Ed. A question about, so are the, let me see here. Are there same day or real time incentive opportunities, or are they only called day ahead? How does the timing of that work?
Yeah, so the events are called day ahead, typically. So there's no additional incentive or like an additional program for like a shorter window of response time, if that's what you're thinking of.
Let's see, we've got one other one here. Can the battery also take advantage of other ISO New England incentives when not charging, discharging?
No. So if you are a priority customer, we used to allow participation in the ISO forward capacity market, but we changed the rule a couple of years ago so that you can no longer do that. So you're expected to, if you're enrolled in passive, you're expected to participate in the passive program. And you know, because typically an ISO forward capacity participation event would coincide with a peak day where we would want you to be performing for our program. So short answer is no, you cannot.
Perfect. Lots of good questions. Are there any other questions? There's nothing else in the queue here. So we'll just give it another minute or so for folks. But as Ed said, thank you for joining us today. If there are other questions that come up afterward and you want to reach out to us, feel free. And if you want to pop back on screen and put the email address up again, feel free to reach out. A question about CPACE financing, Ed. Is it possible to use CPACE to finance these type of projects?
Yes, and I would love to see the first one come through.
CPACE can be used. Again, if folks have questions about CPACE or how that works, we'd be happy to connect you with our colleagues here to help answer those questions.
All right. Well, I think if that's, give it just a second. I think if that's it, then thank you all for joining today. And yeah, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us through the email address on the screen here. And thanks a lot, everyone, and have a great afternoon. We'll have a copy of this recording and slides posted on our website by the beginning of next week.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.